here's Brody Brazil.
So if you're watching this video, you're very familiar with the Tampa Bay Rays as obviously a baseball team. However, the way they've been operating lately with local entities like the city and the county government, it kind of feels like they're just playing volleyball, lobbing the ball back over the net, then the other side returns it back to you, and then you return it back to them. There's been so much back and forth on a multitude of different levels with Tropicana Field, with the potential new stadium project, with their temporary stadium at Steinbrenner Field for 2025. But now we're finding out from the city of St. Petersburg, they're saying, yes, we realize we're on the hook to repair Tropicana Field, the roof, the turf, and everything inside, but we don't have a specific deadline that we need to operate under. And although the team wants this done by 2026, the city of St. Pete is saying, we're not really in a rush to do this here. So more on the conflict there and both sides of that in just a second. Let me remind you kind of how this part started. Back in late December, the Rays sent a letter to the city of St. Petersburg saying, quote, this, the Rays support and expect the city to rebuild Tropicana Field in accordance with the terms of the current use agreement. Now, there is this binding document, this lease, which is coming up to the end, right? Which was only supposed to be good until 2028 because it had an expiration date. But it also had some language in there about a natural disaster and what would happen and how many more years the lease would be extended. We'll get to that in just a second. But both sides are kind of realizing, okay, we have to hold up to this document that we're operating off of. The letter also went on to say a partial 2026 season in Tropicana Field, at Tropicana Field, would present massive logistical and revenue challenges for the team. It is therefore critical that the rebuild start in earnest as soon as possible, that a realistic completion schedule be developed quickly, and that the city diligently pursue the reconstruction as required by the use agreement. What the Rays are essentially saying there is, you can't finish this mid-2026. We can't do a temporary stadium for half the year. We do seasons one at a time in one big chunk. So if you miss 2026, then we can't do this until 2027, or it just doesn't make any sense, right? Because the city might view it and say, well, what if we have this done by July 2026? And the Rays say, yeah, but our season starts in March. So this has all been kind of the back and forth. Now, MLB.com, a property basically of all the team ownerships. And so this is kind of the Rays perspective. But MLB.com has this coverage. With the Trop deemed unplayable for the 2025 season following the storm, their use agreement with the city will be extended through the end of the 2028 season. Originally, it was supposed to expire at the end of 27. The Rays wanted to move into their new stadium by 28. Not going to happen. But now it'll be extended through the end of the 2028 season. Section 16.03 in the city's original agreement with the club dictates that in the event of total or partial destruction or damage rendering the dome not suitable for playing home games, the agreement would be suspended and extended by one season. Okay, that was the interpretation of the team and of Major League Baseball. As you're about to find out, the city has a totally different perspective on this. This is via Reuters, the news service. This is kind of the lob back now over the net, right? So now the city of St. Petersburg here in January is responding via a letter to what the Rays said right before the holidays, or was it right after the holidays? At the end, very, very end of December. St. Petersburg City Administrator Rob Gerdes replied to President Matt Silverman in a letter dated January 15th, saying the city is under no contractual obligation to fulfill the team's wishes by a certain date. Right? So the Rays went out and sent a letter and said, this is a priority. 2026, start of the season. We need you to get on this ASAP because we're in trouble if you don't. Quote, we look forward to, this is more from the city, we look forward to cooperating to attempt to achieve the mutual goal of making Tropicana Field suitable for Major League Baseball games by opening day of the 2026 season, St. Petersburg City Administrator Rob Gerdes wrote. However, it is important to reiterate that the current use agreement governs the obligations of the parties, and any correspondence between the city of St. Petersburg and the Tampa Bay Rays, like all these letters we're writing back and forth, does not alter those obligations. Essentially, we can talk all we want here, but what's written down is written down, and there's nothing that says we have to do this in a certain time fashion for the baseball team. Under the current use agreement between the Rays and the city, the agreement is extended, check this out, another year for every year Tropicana Field is not in operation. So I'll get to the rest of this in just a second. That could mean that if the Rays are out of the Trop for 2 years, that lease that was supposed to end at the start of the 2028 season, now goes 2 more years. Right? So all of this could be buying the Trop more years, more time, the city more time, but then it puts the Rays in this unforgivable spot. Can't get the new stadium done? Well, that's kind of largely on them if they're backing out of this. Can't maybe stay at a temporary spot for more than one season like Steinbrenner Field. So the city and the county are almost not dragging this along on purpose, but they are in no rush. Tropicana Field is not, extended another year for every year Tropicana Field is not in operation. Gerdes wrote that it could extend past the 2028 season when the team's lease with the ballpark expires. Obviously, it could extend apparently a couple years. Now, this is Reuters' interpretation. This is their reporting. But it could extend a year for every year Tropicana Field is not in operation. So if we're talking 25 and 26, right, you would add those 2 years onto the end of what the lease used to look like. Here's some more information. In December, city officials said repairs could be completed to ensure the Rays open the 2026 season at their home park, but they would need approval by late March 2025 to install turf and a new roof by February 2026. Obviously, it needs to be done by 26 in the month before if you're going to play baseball games to make sure everything works and checks out. But approval by late March. So we are about 60 days away from finding the fate and the future of Tropicana Field, at least for 2026. They've got some time, so this is not totally a rush, but it has to have approval by about 60 days from right now. It's also interesting on the flip side, there's other things that need to happen by late March. Let me get into that. Silverman's email did not address the Rays' plans to build a $1.3 billion stadium, which was originally planned to be their home beginning in 2028. The Rays have until March 31st to complete a checklist of benchmark items. If they don't, the deal for the private-public partnership, the new stadium, will expire. So if you're wondering, all right, what's the future of the Rays here? Temporary stadium for more years, back to the Trop, new stadium, all of this, like legally, on 2 fronts here. Tropicana Field, we need to know by late March if it's ready or not for 26. New stadium, March 31st, the Rays need to do some things, have them in place, this checklist of benchmark items. Otherwise, all of that new stadium talk goes entirely away. So there are some deadlines here. There is a rush. The city of St. Petersburg doesn't seem like they're in a rush, though, to fix up Tropicana Field, and the Rays at least want to know. So here are my takeaways. It's never good when there's 2 parties and one of them is rushed and the other one isn't. Now, we can be talking about a baseball team and a city, or we can just be talking about 2 individuals or a business and an individual. When one side is rushed and has a deadline and is urgent and is feeling stressed out, like the Rays are, they need to figure out where their home's going to be. They need to probably plan or maybe start to strategize. Have talks with Orlando, and I hate to even bring this up because I hate that idea and I hate this being a potential end result, but that's probably part of their process. They just need to know, they want to know, but the city of St. Petersburg is not in that same rush, either unintentionally or intentionally. It's also still unknown where the $56 million of repairs will come from. Again, the city of St. Petersburg realizes that because of that agreement, they're kind of on the hook, but can they even afford that? Will insurance kick in for any of that? So maybe that's part of their timing and lack of urgency. But again, the lack of urgency on one side and a complete rush on the other side, that's not a good relationship. Like, this is going in a bad direction simply because of this. St. Petersburg and Pinellas County, if I'm watching this whole situation develop here, neither of them have a really good working relationship with the Rays. I said both feel against the Rays here. Maybe that's strong language, but there's no synergy. It's not like the team has an issue with just the city or just the county. It feels like the city and the county both have a lot of tension with the baseball team and back and forth right now. And so if repairs or a new stadium are not in place by late March, right? We know that the Tropicana Field situation has to be approved by late March. We know that the Rays need to come with their checklist all complete by late March for the new stadium. If neither of those things are in place, things start to get wild. And I'm telling you, this is when the relocation talks start, and this is when the wild ideas start, and this is when all the rumors and speculations start. If they can get one or the other of these things complete, if they can get Tropicana Field approved for repairs, and even if it's for 26 or for 27, if they can get that done by late March, though, and that would mean 26, then that is some assurance. That is some security in this entire situation. Or if they can come forward with all the paperwork they need and all the checklists they need for the new baseball stadium, because the city and the county have signed off on that by the end of March, then at least that is secured. But if they have neither of those two things by the end of March, I'm telling you, this is when the situation gets, and for no other better word, wild. Things are going to get wild if they weren't already for the Tampa Bay Rays. So no deadline according to the city. Maybe that's just a response. Maybe that's some tension back and forth, but that is the volleyball game going on right now between the team and local government. It's also the end of this video. I'm glad you made it here to the end. Thumbs up down below. Greatly helps me, this video and this channel. And one more thing, don't forget to go down there and hit that subscribe button so I can definitely see you back here next time.